your brain seems to work almost better when you're not trying to be productive. If your calendar is too full, your brain is probably too full as well. Your brain, turns out, doesn't stop working when you stop working. It's just working on something different. This is not random. This is not coincidence. I might be optimizing my time on paper, but I wasn't optimizing my brain, my focus, my energy. The problem isn't your creativity. The problem isn't your lack of time. What is a problem? Okay, so if you're tuning into this podcast, I am going to guess that the title resonated with you, and you are someone like myself that probably gets their best ideas in the shower. Or maybe it's when you're going for a walk, or when you're driving, maybe after a meditation. That's a bit of a classic for me. Or this is an annoying one, but happens a lot. Midnight, 1 a.m, or before you're going to bed, and your little brain is going ping, ping, ping with all the ideas. This is not random. This is not coincidence. In fact, there's actually a really good reason your brain seems to work almost better when you're not trying to be productive, when you're not trying to think of the answer or the solution. That's when it comes. Now, in this episode today, I'm going to explain what is going on, the neuroscience behind it, and this is the magic bit, how to bloody harness it. Because if you can harness it, oh my God, life is going to become so much easier, smoother. You're going to have so much more clarity. You're going to be able to make decisions quicker. And who doesn't want that? Now, I'll be honest with you, this podcast today was inspired from my Business by Design community. I run a community with an amazing set of women it's basically the place for ambitious women who want to unfuck their flow and take action, right? And we have regular calls, and on one of our regular calls, we were having a bit of a joke about one of the ladies was wanting to make a decision, and another lady said, go have a shower. That's when the best ideas come. So we're like, having a little joke about it. And I said, guys, you know there's like a legit reason that happens. And they were like, no. So it made me realise not enough people are understanding why this is happening and how to harness it. So that is what I want to share with you in today's podcast. And I know you're going to love this one, because I actually put this on my Instagram stories the other day and was like, right, what podcast episode do you want? Here's some ideas I'm toying with. And I put this on there. And to be honest, I think this was going to even be like, nobody was going to vote for this one, but this was overwhelmingly, with 80% of the wins or the votes, 80% of people chose this one. This is the winner. So here we go. This is what today's podcast is about. And of course, this podcast is all about helping you unfuck your flow and take action without the procrastination, the overwhelm, and the shiny object syndrome. So I know today's episode is going to help you. And also, before we dive in, if you are watching the recording of this rather than just listening, you will have also seen the interesting backgrounds and decor that I currently have around me. It's almost like I stepped into Van Gogh's bedroom scene. It is very bright, it's very colourful. You may have clocked that I'm actually in the back room of my nans. Yes, the digital nomading has commenced once again, and I'm going to be all over the show for the next few months. So every now and again, I do make a little bit of appearance to my 85-year-old nana's house in Kent, and which is where we're recording this podcast at the moment. And is it perfect? No, it bloody isn't. But I realise that if I keep putting off and procrastinating until things are perfect, things are never going to get done. And the whole premise of this podcast and what I'm all about, helping you unfuck your flow and take action. Sometimes, guys, you know what? You just need to be a little bit imperfect and get it done. So, took a little leaf out my own book there. So, let's get back to this. Your best ideas come in the shower, on a walk, when you're driving, etc., etc. That is not because you have suddenly stepped into this magical place where water descends on you and like rains you in great creativity. It's not that, okay? What it is it's a part of the brain that you're activating called the default mode network. And I'm going to explain a little bit more about that because it is so fascinating. First of all, let's take a little back step about what the problem actually is. Because if you are struggling with clarity, if you are struggling with, thinking of ideas and making decisions, the problem isn't you. The problem isn't your creativity. The problem isn't your lack of time. What is a problem is your lack of thinking space. Now, I am my own guinea pig here, right? Because my backstory, I obviously nowadays I teach time management, right? I teach time management through energy management, but it wasn't always the case. I actually used to be what I say shit hot at time management, and I used to be doing all the correct things when it came to what you learn about time management. I was pomodoroing, I was time blocking, I was, eating that frog, which is where you do like the dirtiest, biggest, that's not a word, biggest, I don't really want to do that task. You do that first thing in the morning. And I did all this. And I had a diary worthy of like military precision. Like it was a beautiful timetable. And that worked for a bit, but it also was my downfall. And in 2019, I suffered a severe burnout and a wake-up call. And it made me realise that managing my time wasn't actually working for me. And managing my time actually contributed to my burnout. Technically on paper, I had great work-life balance and I was the organised one. Want something busy, give it to Alice. Like always met deadlines, always made it to meetings on time, if not early. Something went severely wrong because I was managing my time, but I wasn't managing my energy. So I was always back to back. I was always trying to optimise my time. I was trying to fill every gap. I was always running from X to Y. There was no space between meetings. There was no time to process. There was no time to creatively think because I deemed any bit of white space in my carefully curated calendar for the week, I would deem any white space as unproductive. And I was on a bloody mission to be productive. I didn't want to waste time. So what happened? Well, I couldn't make decisions properly. I had a lot of mental clutter in my head. I wasn't optimizing my focus. Yeah, I might be optimizing my time on paper, but I wasn't optimizing my brain, my focus, my energy. And the big thing is, clarity isn't created when you're constantly busy. It's created when your brain has space to process. And be honest, how many of you listening to this right now are not giving yourself enough space to process? So no wonder you are struggling with clarity. No wonder you are struggling to make decisions. And this is where the neuroscience bit comes in. Because as I said, clarity comes, decision making, etc. That all comes when your brain has the space to process. And it's because of this part of your brain called the default mode network. Now, hands up confession, I'm an absolute neuroscience geek. I bloody love all that. But this also was quite a recent discovery for me. Like I only found out about the default mode network a few years ago. So scientists used to believe that when you weren't doing anything, your brain just was like resting. It was idle. It wasn't doing anything. Then, however, in the early 2000s, there was a neuroscientist called Marcus Raichley. Marcus, I doubt you're listening to this, but if you are, and I've absolutely butchered your surname there, I do apologise. But anyway, Marcus Raichley and his team ran some brain scans, so they're fMRI, and what they found was that when people weren't doing anything, the brain actually wasn't sitting there idle. A specific part of the brain was actually still highly active. So they've got their fMRI and they're looking at it, and when people aren't doing anything, there's a certain part of the brain that is lighting up. And this then became known as the default mode network. And actually, do you know what? In some cases, it was more active at rest than when people were doing tasks. So what is actually going on here? So the DMN, the default mode network, this part of your brain, this is the part of the brain that is processing everything that you've experienced. It's connecting ideas, it's reflecting on situations. So hopefully already you can start to see that actually this is a really important part of your brain, and you can see how this actually is absolutely integral to helping you have what we will call those shower aha moments. Because your brain, turns out, doesn't stop working when you stop working. It's just working on something different. So this is exactly why when you stop doing something and you go do something like having a shower, which could be quite relaxing, or going for a walk, or meditating, or maybe even driving, which is something so routine for you, you can literally do it with your eyes closed. And let's be honest, we've all done it, haven't we? We've all accidentally driven somewhere on autopilot, or we've safely got to work and gone, oh my God, I don't remember that half-hour drive. at all. Like, did I stop for the red lights? I'm assuming so because I've got no tickets. So this is because of the default mode network. You are not physically doing something like, writing your content plan for the week or recording a podcast. However, your brain is using a different part of the brain when you are not doing something, and that is when the decision making and the processing and the reflection and the clarity and the problem solving is all happening. That part of the brain is switching on, and then bing, aha, here comes your aha moment. Here comes your great idea, your money maker, the solution to the problem that you've been thinking about for ages, or a sense of satisfaction in like, yeah, that's the decision that I am going for. And unfortunately, I think most of us these days are not using this part of your brain. Why? Because I was guilty of this. We are constantly on. Now, if you're doing something, this part of the brain isn't active, right? So if you're walking and you're listening to a podcast, if you're doing your meal prep and you're chatting to your mum, like when you're back-to-back meetings, you're not going to activate that part of the brain. Now, I get it. And you may also go, Alice, I've actually seen you say on your Instagram that you should make the most of dead time while you're going for a walk, or read a book whilst you're commuting on the train. Yeah, absolutely. But when we do that all day, every day, we are not allowing ourselves any space to activate this default mode network, which is also why, in my opinion, that it comes alive at night, because we've been busy and hustling and running around all day. So then when we start to down tools and wind down and get into bed, say at 11 o'clock at night, and the brain then activates the default mode network and it's like ping, and now your brain is being flooded with all these ideas, etc. So yes, whilst I think multitasking in the not the sense of like, trying to do emails while being on a call, but multitasking dead time in the sense of like, do you know what, if you're doing something routine like cleaning and you want to use that as a catch up time with your bestie, or you're going for a walk with the dog and you want to listen to a personal development podcast, or obviously one like this, Unfuck Your Flow and Take Action, go for it. What I'm saying though is don't do it the time, because if you're doing it all the time, you're not going to fully process everything. That's when thoughts stay in your head unfinished. That's when decisions feel unclear or uncertain, or you're just carrying the mental noise of every single fucking day just into the next and into the next and into the next. And this is why I believe that the problem isn't a lack of clarity. It's just that you're not giving your brain the time and the space it needs to process. And I do think as well that this is a modern habit problem that is actually getting worse and worse, because we are constantly switched on, because we are constantly trying to optimize our time and do more. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. Like, of course we want to optimize our time, but we got to be careful how we do it. I mean, let's think about it. Let's go back 10, 20 years ago. We didn't have social media and WhatsApp and 24-hour accessibility and Amazon deliveries in the next 2 hours and stuff. Like, life was a little bit slower paced. But as the pace of life is picking up, as we're more on demand, as we shorten the frame of time between like wanting something and getting something, as we are constantly connected to our laptops and our phones and to technology, and we even get bloody phone calls for our watches now. The problem with this is that it is constant stimulation. Now, I know from my own journey and my own story, I burnt out because I wasn't looking after my energy. And part of that was that constant, always on stimulation, never taking time off, never being able to down tools, always trying to make every single moment count, which is why I was listening to podcasts while I was washing my hair. That comes at a price. That comes at a price to this part of your brain, the default mode network. And then because of that, it comes at a price to things like your clarity. Comes at a price to your fucking nervous system, because you're always in that state of fight or flight. So as I said, I think it's a modern habit, a modern day problem that I think is only going to get worse. So that's why, that's what. So what do we do going forward? What I want you to do is I want you to start allocating what I would call white space into your calendar. And what that means is just giving yourself chunks of time where you don't have anything diarised, anything planned in. So it could be, for example, that you look at your diary and do that. Go do that right now if you can. Get your diary, look at it for the next week to 2 weeks. And where is it too rammed? Like, can you take a meeting out? Can you shorten a meeting so you're not back to back? Can you add in an extra walk? Like, what can you do to create just a tiny bit of white space so you're allowing for that default mode network to be able to kick in? Maybe you realize that actually you're so on the go with, business and being a mum and being a good friend that you've just not given yourself any me time, and you haven't given yourself a little bit of that quiet. And doing something like that, like, do you know what? Next Sunday, I'm going to go for a walk on my own for an hour with the dog in the park, without a podcast, without my phone, without technology. It could be something as simple as that. Now, it could be that you want to block out some time. I definitely am somebody, if it's something that I've planned, I feel guilty for it. So even though it sounds ironic, like you're planning for your downtime and you're planning for the white space, if you're someone like me who feels guilty for it, this can really help, because you're kind of like, well, I'm sticking to the plan. That's like what I said I was going to do. So you can take the guilt out of it. But don't underestimate the micro moments that you can activate your default mode network as well. So I work from home, I'm on back-to-back Zoom calls, meetings, etc. I like my tea. I like a green tea, by the way, green tea and matcha. I'm not an English tea drinker. So I'll go downstairs and, I'll make my cuppa, I'll make my iced latte or whatever. In that 5-10 minutes, I am bad at this myself. And I will listen to voice notes. I will try and catch up in that little pocket of time. But every now and again, I can feel myself lagging. I know enough now about my energy, and I can feel myself go, no, I don't need to fill that space, that time, my brain with more. I'm just going to make the coffee and just be present. Something as simple as that. Like, just create those little pockets of 5 minutes to just decompress. Another thing that might be really good for you, and this is something I've started doing, is even on my back-to-back days, and I say to people, well, I'm back-to-back meetings today, I'm not really, okay? I'm not lying. I am technically back-to-back, but what I've done is I've allocated the space for that admin and that processing and that thinking time at the back of that meeting. So let's say I've got a meeting with a client. I know when I have a meeting with a client, I have a coaching call with a client, something juicy is going to come out of that, either for myself or for them. It's either going to be juicy for myself because I'm going to like, oh, hello, this could be a great podcast episode, which is how this got created. Or it might be that I need to produce some resources for them and I need to do some thinking or whatever. So giving myself a little bit of space and time after that meeting to decompress it before rushing into the next meeting, I'm able to access that part of my thinking brain, the default mode network. So it could be something like that. You're super busy, you're back-to-back meeting, but you just add that little bit of buffer in between to give yourself that space to think. Now, if you've heard me talk before and you've listened to my podcast, you will know that I am really shit hot on advocating 2 important aspects around what I call energy management, and that is return on time and energy-led time management. So how does it work in this scenario around your default mode network and your shower aha moments? Well, the first thing, return on time. As I said, I was so bad. I used to feel so guilty that if I wasn't back to back, I wasn't feeling productive. If I wasn't multitasking 6 things at once, I felt like I wasn't using my time properly. However, my burnout taught me something really important, that actually input in isn't always output out. And what you need to be looking at instead is a concept that I call return on time. So let's reframe it for you, babe. Especially if, like me, you feel guilty. White space isn't I'm not doing anything. White space is a good return on time, because it's going to give you better decisions, faster action. It's going to help you feel more aligned. It's going to help you process. So thinking time actually gives you a high return on time rather than just doing more. Make sense? The next thing to think about is energy management. This is something obviously I talk about all the time. I call it energy-led time management. And constantly doing more is not just going to physically wear you out, but mentally wear you out as well. It's going to create mental fatigue. There's only so much bandwidth that you've got. And of course, you and I both know when you're feeling more fatigued, what happens? You make poor decisions, you procrastinate. So again, this white space isn't wasted time. It's actually going to serve you and your energy. And this is exactly why I always say that time management isn't about managing time, but it's about managing your energy. So guys, what do I want you to do going forward? As I say, if you can, get your diary out right now. Look at the next 1 week, the next 2 weeks. Have you got enough white space? Is there any opportunity for your default mode network to even be activated in the next few weeks? If not, please rectify that. If you're stuck on that as well, by the way, feel free to reach out on Instagram or social media, because I would love to help you with this, because this is such a practical way to make sure that you are giving yourself the very best optimal chances to take action, to banish the procrastination and the overwhelm and the, oh my God, I don't know where to start. Because the truth is, guys, if your calendar is too full, your brain is probably too full as well. So guys, thank you so much for tuning in to this episode. Hopefully it's been super useful for you to understand why you have those aha moments in the shower. It's not coincidence, it's not random, there is a bit of neuroscience behind it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and if this episode has hit home and you feel like you're ready to stop trying to do everything alone and you are ready to unfuck your flow and take action, this is exactly the work that we do inside of Business by Design. As I said, it's my community for business women who are ambitious and they want to unfuck their flow and take aligned action. So drop me a message on social media or head to the show notes to find out. And if this episode has helped you and you've got, oh my God, that makes so much sense, please don't forget to like and subscribe and share this with a friend as well that you know is going to absolutely love it. Guys, it has been an absolute pleasure having you here. Until next time, and I will see you very, very soon in another episode of Unfuck Your Flow and Take Action. Guys, one more thing before you leave this episode. Don't forget to check the show notes and download your weekly planner. Yes, this is the exact weekly planner that I give to my clients and to my community members inside my Business by Design community. Go check it out. Seriously, I bang on about planning all the time, but this is an absolute game changer. If you want to own your time and your energy, you want to be more organized, you want to feel control, and of course, as I was saying in this episode about the default mode network, one of the big problems is we are so back to back, or we're just working from a to-do list. We never give ourselves that time and space, that time and space to breathe, the thinking space, etc. So I really encourage you to get into the habit of weekly planning, and of course, create that little bit of buffer and white space for you. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit the link. It's in the show notes. Grab your weekly planner. It's my gift from me to you to help you unfuck your flow and take action.